Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Menara Soaps. My name is Assam and I live in the Montreal area in Canada. I started soaping about 2 years ago, and ever since I have been deeply fascinated about and kind of addicted to making bath and skincare products. As a beginner, I found it really hard to gather all the information I needed to start making soap. There was simply too much information out there. I spent countless hours watching videos, reading blogs and books, and sometimes I found good information, but sometimes it was also misleading and confusing. This is the reason I decided to make this short beginner video series in which I will provide you with important information you need to start soaping. I will explain the soap making process, I will go over the equipment that you need and safety, I will share with you the easiest soap recipe you can start with, and I will provide links to resources that I found super helpful in my soaping journey. So one of the first things to understand about soap making, it's the process of how we obtain soap. Soap is obtained through the saponification process. This process involves the conversion of a fat, oil or lipid into soap and glycerin. This is enabled by the presence of heat and an aqueous alkali, for example, sodium hydroxide, also known as lye or caustic soda. One thing that you'll come across frequently in the future, if you delve a bit further into the soap making process, is the saponification value. This is simply the amount of the lye solution required to saponify the oil or mixture of oil used. Now, there are three main soap making processes. These are cold process, hot process, and melt and pour. In this series, I'm going to focus on the cold process method. So let's talk about lye. First off, we're going to make hard bars of soap, and for that we will be using sodium hydroxide, NaOH. It's probably worth mentioning that liquid soap is made with potassium hydroxide. Both of these substances are hazardous and can be dangerous. So if for any reason you don't feel ready to use sodium hydroxide, then I do recommend starting out with melt and pour soap because you don't need to use sodium hydroxide in melt and pour. When making the lye solution, you need to use distilled water, and this is mainly to avoid the impurities that can exist in your tap water and can affect the quality of your finished bar. So something that you will see frequently in soap recipes is the lye concentration. So basically, this is the amount of lye that is present in the water lye solution, and this can range from 25 to 50%. Usually, a ml value of around 35% is used. The higher your lye content is in the solution, the faster your soap batter will thicken and reach trace. Similarly, the lower your lye content is in the solution, the slower your soap will reach trace. And this is to say that once you have more experience as a soap maker, if you'd like to make a more intricate design and you need more time to play with your colors, then you will have to use a lower lye concentration. If on the other hand you're going for a simpler design, then you can go for a higher lye concentration. However, what you need to keep in mind is that when you have a low lye concentration, this also means that you have more water in your soap, which simply implies that you will need a longer curing time for your soap, as it will require more time for the water to evaporate from the soap. Normally, the saponification reaction takes place within 24 to 48 hours. Technically, after this time, the soap is safe to use because the lye has completely been transformed. That being said, cold process soap needs 4 to 6 weeks of curing time. This is the time that is required for the water content in your soap to evaporate completely. As water evaporates from your soap, it becomes harder and harder, and this allows it to last long in the shower and produce a good lather. In short, the curing time affects the quality of the soap. Now, let's talk about the oils. You can use one oil, for example, olive oil, or you can use a combination of 2 or more oils. Examples of commonly used oils and butters include castor oil, coconut oil, shea butter, cocoa butter, and so on. What you have to keep in mind is that each oil has a different saponification value. So each time you're adding an oil, a different amount of lye will be required to make soap, and the properties of your finished soap will change. As a beginner, I do recommend using recipes that have been developed and tested by other professional soap makers. You can find these on YouTube, blogs, and books, and I will list some good resources in the description of this video where you can find good recipes to start with. Once you have developed a good experience making soap, then you can delve into formulating your own recipes. And when I talk about experience, I mean at least 20 to 30 batches of soap that you have tried and tested. Later, I will make a video about formulating your own recipes and using resources like the soap calculator. One of the most fun parts of soap making, at least for me, is scenting my soaps with different essential oil blends and playing with different colors and designs. In terms of scent, you can simply choose to leave your soap unscented and smell maybe just like the oils that you've used, which is perfectly fine, especially for people who might have certain allergies to certain essential oils or fragrances. But you can also use one essential oil or a mixture of 2 or 3 essential oils, or even more. You can come up with your own blends, and something that I love to use is an essential oil diffuser because this gives me an idea about the scent that I might get in the soap. You can also use fragrances that you can find at different craft stores or online suppliers. These are usually cheaper than essential oils and last longer, but obviously a less natural option. If you're using essential oils, you have to keep in mind that you should not go over certain percentages for safety. Usually, the manufacturers will list what is the percentage range for safety for both essential oils and fragrance oils. If they don't, then you want to make sure to contact them to get that information. And if you're using a fragrance, you need to confirm that it is skin safe. I will list in the video description a link to an essential oil calculator that gives you a percentage amount that is considered safe for each essential oil. Now, let's talk about color. You have different options in terms of coloring the soap. If you leave your soap without color, it will probably have the color of the oil that you use. For example, if you use olive oil in your soap, it will come out a bit yellowish. But you can also decide to add color by using, for example, cosmetic clays. So these include Rhassoul clay, French green clay, purple Brazilian clay, and so on. You can also choose to infuse your oils with herbs, botanicals, spices, flowers, roots to give color to your soap. These are pretty much the most natural ways that you can color your soap. 2 of the most common ways to color soap are using mineral pigments and micas. These are nature-identical colors that are created in labs and are safe to use. They are readily available online and in different stores. Okay. So one last thing I will be talking about is what temperature I will mix in all this stuff. And the answer is, it really depends. I personally love to soak at room temperature. However, I'd say that it really depends on what kind of ingredients you have and their melting temperatures. So if you have ingredients like beeswax that has a high melting temperature, you might want to soak on the higher end closer to 50 degrees Celsius. Though, usually if you have sugars, you want to keep it cool because things tend to heat up during the saponification. I would say a sweet spot is between 35 to 40 degrees Celsius. It also depends whether you want an intense color in your soap. So if you got to soap on the higher end, your color will be more intense, and vice versa. And that's all for now. I believe I have covered a lot of information about soap making. Hopefully, I was able to clarify the basics for you, and to make it even easier, I will be explaining step by step as we make soap in the 3rd and last video of this series. In the next video, I will talk about the equipment that you need so that we can get ready to have fun and get soaping. Until then, if you have enjoyed me talking and want to keep learning more about soap making and other fun DIY skincare projects, make sure to subscribe to my channel and give a thumbs up to this video. You can leave any questions that you may have in the comments and I will make sure to respond as soon as possible and to the best of my knowledge. Follow me on my social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Menara Soaps. If you'd like to purchase any of my products, then visit my website www.𝗦𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏